GDP is the monetary value of all the finished goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific time period. Though it is usually calculated on an annual basis, it includes all private and public consumption, government outlays, investments, and exports, less imports that occurred within a defined territory. In basic terms, this is the way to measure the economic growth of a country.
Yes, but there's a lot of problems with using this method since it doesn't take into account illegal and black market trading. It also doesn't take into account GDP per population, which is citizen productivity. If the GDP only gradually increases while the population of the same country is booming, then that could point to a major problem and a slowing economy instead of a growing economy. Also, all kinds of other issues dealing with GDP would be not measuring domestic companies, persistent in foreign nation, GDP ignores what GNP measures, statistical discrepancies back to the illegal trading, also simple human measurement errors.
There are two major economic systems, free market economy and command economy. Starting with free market economy, where the focus lies on an economy that should work without the government's intervention. The competition is high, which improves the products. However, the system has a high focus on making a profit, which gives the people's well-being a secondary position. Then we have command economy, which is an economy regulated by the state, where there are no inequalities. Sadly though, this prevents a proper development of the products. Though today, most economies are mixed economies because none of these free market or command economies actually work in practice.
And now it's time for us to meet a family that clearly hasn't heard about this before in the luxury trap.
Today we are going to meet the Spenders, a family that has lost all control over their private economy. Starting with Mr. Spender, who owns a company that works with exporting shoelaces. However, he has had a problem with getting a profit out of his company. His wife, Mrs. Spender, has been unemployed for about a year since she got fired from her position at Nordea. She spends her days shopping for herself and the house. She also happens to be pregnant with twins, which she is planning to spoil as much as the family's 2-year-old daughter and their cat. On top of it all, the family has recently bought an expensive apartment in Vasastan and a BMW which they never use.
Hello, I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Matilda. So, the two of you seem to be living a life in luxury. What do you need our help for?
Well, my company, which happens to be the household's only income, is at risk of bankruptcy, and I do not know why.
Oh well, I got fired from my job like a year ago, and I don't know why, because I was such an asset to the company.
Well, have you been active in searching for a job?
In the beginning, I was trying really hard, but no one wanted to hire me, so I gave up. So now I'm like a professional homemaker, focusing on my family, myself, my daughter, and like
We can clearly see that they don't have any idea of how to work the economy.
No, and they are clearly living far above their assets, and they don't even know why their economy is so bad.
And they doesn't seem to understand that they have to pay all the flexible interest rates additional to their loans that they've taken both for their huge apartment and their car.
And they haven't even started paying out the mortgage on either of them. We have now decided that you guys need a crash course in economics.
Starting now.
Okay.
Starting with your firm, Mrs. Bender. You doesn't really know how to get your product sold, but do you know why?
No.
Exchange rates are unstable, which makes it a risky business to be in. If exchange rates appreciates, the demand for export decreases and the demand for import increases. The opposite happens when the exchange rate depreciates. Demand for export increases and the demand for import decreases. Since the Swedish exchange rates are so high, the demand to trade with you will go down, as you see in the graph.
Also, there's something called the circle flow money, which will make it easier for you, Mrs. Bender, to understand why you were fired. So, starting with the circle flow money, we have 5 different groups who are all equally important. We have the household, which is you and your family, the private market, we have the firm, factory market, and the government. Starting with you. You will give money to a private market when you buy things that they have, which you want. They in turn will pay the firm who creates their products. Then the firm will pay the factory market money for the labor they're given, and the factory market where you're working will pay you money as salary. In return, the private market will give you products. You will give labors to the factory market. The factory market will give products to the firm, and the firm will continue giving out the products to the private market. This goes on in a circle. When the circle goes really fast, inflation occurs, which makes the value of the currency drop. However, when the circle goes slowly, it will have deflation, which will cause the value of the crown or the currency to go down, and this will also most likely lead to unemployment in the country, like with you, Mrs. Bender. We have the fifth part of this whole circle flow, which is the government. In the bad times, you will most likely have to pay more taxes, so that the government will be able to help firms by giving them more money. When there's good times, you'll probably have to pay less money to the government, since the firms won't need as much help from the government. And that's how it all works. Depending on whether it's good or bad times, the government can choose to either raise or lower the taxes that the household will have to pay. And in that way they can control the inflation and unemployment.
Now, let's take a look at your assets, or should I say liabilities. Well, we'll start with your car. When you bought it, it was worth 1.2 million crowns, and now it's only worth 500,000.
Did you guys know that a car is one of the worst investments one can make? Only when you start the engine and drive out of the garage from the store where you bought it, it will lose its value of about 30%.
Despite paying off the mortgage, which is the sum you have received, you also have to pay back what's called an interest rate to the bank, so they can make a profit. And since you have a lot of loans, the sum of what you have loaned is only a fraction of what you have to pay back.
The reason as to why you need to pay the interest rate is so that the bank can make a profit. Because in order for them to be able to keep their business going, they need to loan money from something called a central bank and pay a repo rate according to that, as when you're loaning money from the bank. The repo rate is something that the central bank controls, and depending on how high or low it is, it will affect the interest rate that you have to pay, and they will change according to each other.